In early 2026, the world was stunned by a series of breaking news alerts that quickly spread across every major network and social media platform. The United States had launched a sudden and highly coordinated military operation in Caracas, Venezuela, catching both the Venezuelan government and the international community off guard. U.S. Special Operations Forces, operating under the cover of darkness, targeted President Nicolas Maduro in a bold attempt to end his rule, marking a dramatic escalation in U.S.-Latin American relations, not seen in decades. Years of crippling sanctions and relentless diplomatic pressure had failed to dislodge Maduro, whose regime was widely accused of corruption, election rigging, and severe human rights abuses that left the country in economic ruin. The U.S., under President Trump, justified the action as a necessary step to restore regional stability, protect American interests, and support the Venezuelan people's aspirations for democracy. The raid was swift and intense, resulting in over 100 Venezuelan casualties, including both military personnel and civilians caught in the crossfire. But remarkably, there were no reported U.S. fatalities. The operation was designed as a precise decapitation strike, aiming to remove Maduro and his closest allies while leaving the rest of the government infrastructure largely intact in hopes of a smooth transition. Yet this bold move created a sudden power vacuum, plunging the nation into uncertainty and raising fears of chaos, reprisals, and further instability in the days that followed. For ordinary Venezuelans, the intervention brought a mix of shock, fear, and anxiety, but also for some, a glimmer of hope that real change might finally be possible after years of hardship. Internationally, the operation sparked heated debate, raising urgent questions about national sovereignty, the legitimacy of foreign intervention, and the shifting rules of global engagement in the 21st century. The U.S. made it clear that it was willing to use military force to achieve its strategic objectives in its own hemisphere, sending a powerful message to both allies and adversaries. The story of this intervention is complex and far from over, with consequences that will ripple across Venezuela, the region, and the world for years to come. The capture of Nicolas Maduro was a swift, high-stakes special forces operation that would change the course of Venezuelan history. Planned in utmost secrecy, the mission involved months of intelligence gathering, surveillance, and coordination between U.S. and allied operatives on the ground. Every detail was meticulously mapped out, as the risks of failure were enormous. In the pre-dawn hours, elite U.S. units stormed the presidential palace in Caracas, facing fierce resistance from Maduro's loyalists. The operation unfolded with precision, as helicopters hovered above and armored vehicles blocked escape routes. Inside, chaos erupted as security teams scrambled to defend the embattled president. Superior U.S. training and technology quickly overwhelmed Venezuelan security forces. Night vision goggles, encrypted communications, and non-lethal weapons gave the Americans a decisive edge, forcing many defenders to surrender or retreat within minutes. Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, were apprehended and extracted to the U.S., where he now awaits trial on narco-terrorism charges. Their capture sent shockwaves through the region, signaling the end of an era for Venezuela's embattled leadership. The operation was designed to remove the leader, not dismantle the entire government. U.S. officials hoped that by targeting Maduro directly, they could avoid a wider conflict and minimize civilian casualties. The sight of a sitting head of state flown to another country for trial was unprecedented. In Venezuela, chaos followed. Crowds gathered in the streets, some celebrating, others protesting, as news of the arrest spread like wildfire. Vice President Delcy Rodriguez was sworn in as interim leader, but her authority was immediately challenged by rival factions and a skeptical public. The power vacuum left by Maduro's removal created uncertainty at every level of government. The Supreme Court denounced the U.S. action as illegal, but the regime's power was fractured. Judges and officials debated the legitimacy of the new leadership, while protests erupted outside the courthouse. The future of Venezuela's government now depended on the loyalty of the military and the ability to navigate immense challenges. Military leaders became the ultimate arbiters of power, as politicians scrambled to form new alliances. The U.S. had removed the central figure, but left a nation in turmoil. Daily life was upended, with government offices shuttered and uncertainty gripping the streets of Caracas. The world watched, uncertain of what would come next. As Venezuela's fate hung in the balance, global leaders and citizens alike braced for the unpredictable aftermath of Maduro's dramatic capture. The Trump administration cited national security as the central justification for its sudden intervention in Venezuela, emphasizing the urgent need to protect American interests both at home and abroad. Officials in Washington argued that the situation had reached a tipping point, making intervention not just necessary, but unavoidable to safeguard the United States and its allies. They accused Nicolas Maduro's regime of fostering deep connections with powerful drug cartels and criminal organizations, claiming these groups posed a direct and growing threat to the U.S. by enabling the flow of illegal narcotics and violence across borders. To justify the raid on the world stage, the administration invoked the right of self-defense under Article 51 of the United Nations Charter, presenting the operation as a legitimate response to international law. President Trump also highlighted Venezuela's role as a major hub for cocaine smuggling, arguing that the country had become a central artery in the global drug trade. He pointed to recent U.S. naval operations in the Caribbean and Atlantic, which were aimed at intercepting drug shipments and disrupting trafficking networks linked to Venezuela. Oil was another explicit motive. Washington made no secret of its interest in Venezuela's vast energy reserves, which are among the largest in the world. The U.S. announced ambitious plans to rebuild and control Venezuela's energy sector, promising to restore production and stability to global oil markets. American companies were slated to extract oil as reimbursement for their efforts, tying economic interests directly to the intervention. The intervention was also framed as a strategic move to expel hostile foreign powers, namely Cuba, Iran, and Russia, whose influence in Venezuela was seen as a challenge to U.S. dominance in the hemisphere. By removing Maduro, the U.S. aimed to dismantle his alliances with these adversaries and support the Venezuelan opposition's push for democracy. Ultimately, Washington sought to reassert its dominance in what it considers its strategic backyard, sending a clear message to rivals and allies alike. In the end, the operation was as much about global geopolitics and projecting American power as it was about Venezuela itself. The U.S. operation in Venezuela drew immediate global condemnation. Many Latin American nations and UN experts called it a violation of international law and a dangerous return to interventionism. In the U.S., lawmakers debated the legality of the action, with some pushing to limit the president's war powers. Journalists questioned the administration's claims about drug trafficking and the necessity of the raid. Venezuelans themselves were divided. Some welcomed Maduro's removal, others resented foreign intervention and feared for their sovereignty. The country was left polarized, with patriotism clashing against the hope for change. The intervention deepened uncertainty both in Venezuela and in Washington. Venezuela holds the world's largest proven oil reserves, a resource that once made it a global energy powerhouse. Decades of mismanagement and U.S. sanctions crippled the state oil company, PDVSA, causing production to collapse. The resulting economic crisis devastated Venezuelans and contributed to global oil price volatility. The Trump administration made no secret of its intent to control and rebuild Venezuela's oil sector. American companies stand to benefit, but restoring production will require years and massive investment. Control over Venezuelan oil is a strategic prize, not just for profit but for global energy security. The U.S. move is about stabilizing prices and reducing reliance on more volatile regions. Venezuela's oil remains central to the country's fate and to the interests of global powers. The battle for oil is at the heart of the current crisis. As the U.S. pressured Venezuela, China quietly expanded its economic footprint across Latin America. Through trade, loans, and infrastructure projects, China became the region's top trading partner and a key lender to Venezuela. China's Belt and Road Initiative brought strategic ports and influence to the Western Hemisphere. Beijing's loans, repaid in oil, gave it a major stake in Venezuela's resources. Washington saw China's growing presence as a direct challenge to U.S. dominance in its own backyard. The U.S. intervention in Venezuela was partly a pushback against China's encroachment. Venezuela became a flashpoint in the new great power rivalry between the U.S. and China. The crisis is now a battleground for global influence, not just local politics. The petrodollar system, pricing oil in U.S. dollars, has long underpinned American global power. Recently, BRICS nations, led by China, have pushed to trade oil in other currencies, threatening U.S. economic dominance. Venezuela, under Maduro, was preparing to sell oil in yuan and join China's payment system, CIPS. For the U.S., this was a direct threat to the petrodollar and its global leverage. The military operation aimed to keep Venezuelan oil tied to the dollar, and send a warning to others considering a similar move. The battle in Venezuela is about more than leadership. It's about the future of the global financial system. Control over oil sales means control over currency power. The stakes are nothing less than the world order itself. With Maduro gone, Venezuela faces a perilous crossroads. Interim leader Delcy Rodriguez's authority is weak, while the opposition eyes a chance for power. The country is divided, with no clear path to stability or recovery. Three futures loom: a negotiated transition, a descent into civil war, or a prolonged struggle between US and Chinese interests. The military and armed groups could fracture the nation further. Venezuela risks becoming another cautionary tale of regime change gone awry. The hopes of millions hang in the balance as the world watches the next chapter unfold. The outcome will shape not just Venezuela, but the balance of power in the Americas.